Hello, welcome back to another Godzilla Battleline video. Today we're going to be doing a leader tier list. This is Season 20, so anything past Season 20, this isn't really going to be up to date. Don't really know what they're going to be changing in the future, but they don't really touch leaders too often, so unless it's a new leader, this will pretty much be a very set in stone tier list for a while, I'd imagine. But let's go ahead and get started here with Space Godzilla, who I'm going to go ahead and put into C tier. Space Godzilla is decent, but not too good. The ability's pretty bad, and the only plus side, he has nice range and pretty good attack speed, honestly. His leader attack speed is actually a lot faster than his unit attack speed, but the buff is less than him as a unit, and it's super random and bad. It needs to be like way more crystals or just reworked in general because it's not a good ability, but as like, a stat stick, he's pretty solid as far as like a 4-star goes, but yeah, nothing really too special to make Space Godzilla stand out amongst the crowd. Next is Firedan, who I am going to be putting in, I think, C tier for now. I might update it as we go along here. I haven't done a leader tier list in quite a while, so we'll see how it goes, but Firedan isn't really good either. The ability is very lackluster, 20% damage boost to flyers. Very low, especially because most of the best flyers in the game are 5 cost and above, which G89 can buff, or 4 cost and above, which Kong can buff. And I think Firedan's cost is 2, where Kong's is 1, so the only thing that Firedan does that stands out pretty much as a leader is they can't be touched by Kamacuras, and they can buff Torats, so Firedan might be going down to D tier, don't really know yet, but at the end of the day, it is a 20% damage buff, and it's given to flyers, which are pretty much the best characters in the game, so it's not like that horrible, but it's pretty bad. Next is Godzilla 04, which I'll probably end up putting right in between here. So Godzilla 04's ability is, okay, I kind of mix it up with Ultraman a little bit, but I'm pretty sure, okay, so it's just movement speed, I think. Okay, yeah, so Godzilla Final Wars is literally just a 50% movement speed boost for 15 seconds for 3 cost, which is pretty much a shitty version of Gigan 72's movement speed boost. And Godzilla 04 is a 4-star, which is newer. It's going to take a lot longer to level up in comparison to Gigan. And yeah, he's not really carving a niche anywhere. The AoE attack he has is not very good as a leader. I feel like his animations are very slow as a leader as well, like slower than a unit. And he has nice range. I do believe it's equal to Space Godzilla, but it's not nearly as fast DPS. And the AoE doesn't really do anything for him. The ability isn't very good. If it was a 1-cost ability, it'd be decent, but for 3 cost, I mean, it's not enough to put it above Space Godzilla, I think, so I'm gonna leave Godzilla Final Wars there, just a very middling unit, or leader, not unit. But next we have Gigan 72, which is going to be going into A tier. 3 stars are the way to go for most players, and even for whales like Gigan 72 and 3-star leaders in general are still very, very viable. Gigan 72 speed boost is cheap for 2 cost. It hits every ground unit and raises it to Gigan speed, which is usually a lot higher than what 50% is for most units. Like, you could pretty much have Earth G89 running at Gigan speed. That's pretty crazy. And the combo works really nicely because the energy cost is cheap. It's actually a really good damage tool as well. It's probably the highest damaging ability function in the game for a leader. And really good DPS. Only single target, but Gigan 72 attacks really quick and very smoothly. Just a pretty solid leader. He sucks as a unit, so you're really only going to be leveling up Gigan 72 as a leader, but it can be worth it. G89, of course, is the obvious choice as far as being worth it goes, but Gigan 72 has a role in this game of being a pretty solid leader, and it's good to see because unit Gigan is horrible. Next is Desghidorah, who do I want to put Desghidorah in B or A? I think I'm going to leave it in B tier. I think it's decent. The energy it gives back is nice, but it's not like a ton. And it doesn't really do anything effect-wise. It just does like a little flame damage. So the effect kind of sucks. It's really just the energy gain that's good. But it's not like that good to where I feel like it's meta. It's decent enough. And Descadora's piercing attacks are really nice at the leader position. He is a pretty slow attacker, but you know, he's a pretty solid leader overall, especially for how this game goes. I'm totally fine with his addition. Mecha King Ghidorah was better in his prime, but now that Mecha King Ghidorah is still not fixed, Descadora is kind of a better version of Mecha King Ghidorah as a leader and a unit now, which is kind of sad, but it is what it is. Descadora's in B tier, good for him. Next is Destroya, which I'm also going to be putting in B tier. So Destroya is a very niche leader, as in you have to use short range units, and there's not that many in the game. Even units that you think are short range are not short range, like Anguirus you'd think is short range, but he's not. Godzilla 89 is short range, but he's not. Mothra Leo being short range, but he is not. And those are some very good characters that would like this buff. Unfortunately, they don't get it. So you're reserved to use like King Caesar, Gigan 04, some other short range units. Those two come to mind. Megaguirus as well, Kamacuras, Dorats. So you're very limited to the team you can run with Destroya, but the ability is pretty solid. It's a good damage boost. It's not super expensive. It's still a little pricey, but you know, for how much damage it gives, and if you're running a team with a lot of short range units, it can be pretty decent. And to be decent in this game is pretty solid because most leaders are trash, so B tier is a nice place to be. It at least, you know, is in a usable state where you can have some fun with it, respect it a little bit. I think Destroy is there. Next is G21, who is brand new this season, and G21 might be the worst leader in the game. He is awful. I don't even want to make the ranked battle video for this guy. It's so bad. Like, I tried recording, and after the first match, I'm like, dude, F this. I don't want to do this. I'm probably still going to do it, but my God, you guys, it is horrible. It's like Ultima's ability, like levels of uselessness. And they saw how useless Ultima's ability was, and they did it again with G21. So it doesn't even matter that it's short range units, which, you know, there's not that many in the game that he's buffing. What matters is the cost on the ability is so overpriced that the ability can never function in the game. It's always like a bad thing to use the ability. It's never good. There's never a good situation unless they're like a 1 HP leader and you could use it to take him out. So, useless ability. Let's talk about his attacks. Doesn't have AoE. He has the same AoE chain, which is horrible for a leader to have because leaders can swap aggro, unlike units. So the problems that G21 has as a unit is literally exemplified as a leader, and he is just awful. He makes Kamacuras like god tier because they counter him so hard, and yeah, he is god awful, you guys. Absolute trash. The only thing that would have saved this dude is a nice ability, and no, he did not get that. Very terrible. Next is the complete opposite of G21, G89. Godzilla 1989 is the undisputed best leader in the game. Very quick access, you unlock him right off the bat, and he's literally the best. If you're a newer player, we say this a lot. I don't know if you've heard it yet, so I just like to say it every time. You need to wait to get these 3-star leaders like Gigan and Godzilla 89 to level 17. 4-star leaders will be the way to go until they reach level 17. And then this tier list will start making more sense because Godzilla 89 is by far the best. His ability is very cheap at 2 cost, and it's an insane 50% damage boost to anything that's 5 cost or above. Pretty much how this game has gone since launch is that 5 cost units and higher are the primary damage carries. So those units really love getting a 50% damage boost. The 2 cost makes it extremely efficient and easy to use. G89 has AoE on his attacks, which is crazy. Yeah, he's the epitome of what a good leader is. I can't ever see G89 dropping out of S tier unless they release something that's literally a better version of him, which would be absolutely busted. But G89 is, I mean, he's great. And I think the best part about it is because he is the first leader you get, he is very, you know, he's easily accessible. And you don't have to dive into leveling up a leader in this game. You can literally just roll with G89. Not at first, like we mentioned, you have to have the 4-star But you can throw in like any 4-star here that's like the highest on the tier list and you'll have success. But GD9's the GOAT, man. Absolute GOAT as far as leaders go. Next is EVA Unit 1, which we will be putting into A tier. EVA Unit 1 will be meta as it gets level ups. It's pretty much too low level to function in high play right now, but you will see it occasionally, as the ability is very strong even for 5 cost. It melts every unit on the battlefield down to 10% HP, which is pretty much in a one-hit range, and it drops leader HP 15%, which is just a nice little bonus. There's a lot of plays you can make with it. I haven't even used it that much, and I know there's a lot of exploring you can do. I could see chip damage teams being extremely annoying because you can literally just use Eva's ability and Dimension Tide, and you can take out a whole push with Dimension Tide damage because it dropped everything's HP so low. Also, Eva has AoE on the attacks, which isn't super big, but still AoE nonetheless. And also resistant to explosions, which is huge because Burning Godzilla and then 4th Angel are extremely meta, or will be extremely meta. So I could see EVA Unit 1 even being an S tier leader in the future. But right now it's just going to go into the A tier. Very good leader. It could be a limited time access unit, so make sure you get a couple level ups on this thing because it could be saving your ass in the near future. Next is Mecha Godzilla, who we will put in. We'll put him like right here. So the thing with Mecha Godzilla is stacking up tier list wise, like Mecha Godzilla is one of the worst leaders in the game. The only thing that saves him is he's a 3-star. He has pretty decent attack, and he does everything very decently as far as like a stat stick goes. So there are portions in this game where I can see Mecha Godzilla leader being the best option for some players. Now with that said, like he's usually like not the best option like ever if you have things at equal level. Like G89, Gigan 72, way better than Mecha Godzilla and are also 3-stars with him. So there's really no reason to level up Mecha Godzilla unless you're using G89 and Gigan as leader or as units, but most people aren't doing that. I really don't know why anyone would level up Mecha Godzilla nowadays, especially with so many more options and the way they, remodeled leaders. 4-star leaders are way more usable early on. They used to not be like that. So Mecha Godzilla is pretty bad, but just because he's a 3-star leader and a decent stat stick, I'm going to leave him right there in C tier, a little towards the top. Next is Ultraman, who... Man, I'm tempted to put Ultraman in D tier too, but I don't think so. I think we'll put it above Fire Dan for right now. We might drop Ultraman and Fire Dan down depending on how many people end up in C tier, but Ultraman's pretty bad. Low attack speed. The piercing is really not that... I mean, it's good, but it's not like that good. It's definitely his best quality. His attack range is really low though. You'd expect him to have really high attack range because leader Ultraman, or unit Ultraman, has a super high attack range, but not the leader. And the ability suffers from what a lot of abilities suffer from, being way too overpriced. And not only is it overpriced, it doesn't really function that well. The 10 seconds you get to do damage and movement speed doesn't really mesh. If you're using it for the movement speed, by the time they get there, the damage is going to wear off. And if you're using it for the damage, they're not moving because they're fighting. So it's a very lackluster ability. It needs to like at least double the time, especially if it's 4 cost. It's really weird how shit some of these abilities are, like conceptually designed. But Ultraman is one of those, and just kind of not worth running at leader. If you did want to run Ultraman, it'd just be for you like the character, you're just a fan of Ultraman, which makes sense. There's probably some people out there that love Ultraman and are playing this game because of all the Ultraman content. I salute to you, but yeah, he's not that good. Maybe if they dropped the ability price down and gave it a little bit of a buff, but I mean, it has potential, but as it is right now, not that good. Next is Mothra. So Mothra is going to be going into A tier, a very good leader. I was sleeping on Mothra, I think, the last time we did a tier list, but I don't know why. My last leader tier list was pretty weird, honestly. I don't know why I thought some of the things I thought, but Mothra was definitely my biggest miss, especially because I am the master of Mothra, so I know this thing more than anyone. Mothra's really good. It's a very good whale leader and just a very good leader in general. I've been using Mothra with level 30 G89 for, a year now, and it's been working, like literally a year, and it's been working just fine. The thing that I love most about Mothra is the AoE on her attacks is massive. It hits so many things. It will more often than not hit 2 to 3 things. It's very good for countering pushes that stack together, which is, what usually happens. Batra can buff Mothra, and Batra is one of the best units in the game. And buffing Mothra leader as Batra is the strongest damage output you can have at a leader position. And then the heal is obviously great for some ground units, primarily G89, Earth, any ground unit pretty much, but mostly G89, especially for most players. 4 stars, it's kind of hard to get them to heal a lot, but there's a lot of ways you could use the heal. You can use it passively when your monster took a lot of damage, but it's not going to fight anything for a while. You can get it healed up that way. It also stacks with Psychic Chorus, which is huge because you're having 2 heals at the same time that aren't like counteracting each other. That's really nice. And Mothra also has the small bonus of not getting hit by Kamacuras, which you might not think is huge, but at certain times you're very grateful it's there. So Mothra's a great leader in this game. It's good to see because as a unit she's not bad, but she's not even mediocre, but she's just not cutting it. So she's left off more often than not, but great leader. Next is Batra, who is going into D tier. Batra's movement speed buff is really shit. It only gives 20% movement speed, 50% to flyers, which isn't really that good. You don't really want to rush flyers. They're pretty frail. You usually want to tank in front, and it doesn't really function well with how this game works. The damage that Batra's ability does is ridiculously useless, especially at high levels. And yeah, the only real bonus is they can't get hit by Kamacuras. Got decent DPS for the most part, but just go Fire Rodan if you really want to take this route. At least you have a damage boost, and it's a lot better than the speed boost, I'll tell you that. So Batra's not very good. Next is Biollante, who I'm also going to be putting in A tier. I'll put Bio here. That seems like a good spot. I would say Bio's more usable right now than Eva, but I think Eva's just better in general, so I'll leave it like that. Biollante is very good simply for the fact it's the only leader that does a 360-degree AoE damage circle, which is really huge when fighting very annoying units named Kiryu and Mogira. Those units are notorious for changing leader aggro and just ending games a lot quicker because, they changed the leader aggro on you, made them start soaking damage, and the rest of your damage units started just wailing on the back of the leader. But Biollante has the luxury of being able to hit everything at the same time, no matter what she's looking at, and the range on it is very nice, so usually she's hitting pretty much everything that gets into range to fight her. The ability is very nice. It's really cheap and pretty efficient. It gives movement speed in water, which is huge, very fast, and the 20% damage boost I think it isn't a lot, but it's to long range units, which there's a lot of good long range units in the game. So Biollante is just a very nice leader. She got nerfed a while ago too, but she's still pulling through enough to get A tier. You don't see her quite that often, but when you're running Kiryu and Mog, you're not happy when you see a high level Biollante leader, I'll tell you that. Next is Shin Godzilla. We're going to go ahead and put in D tier. Yeah, Shin Godzilla's trash, man. The ability is so useless. The burn does nothing. The energy taking away can be countered just by deploying energy, which leaves you in the negative. It's pretty much another ability that is counteractive with trying to win the game. It's just not good. His AoE attack sucks pretty much because you can never activate it because close units walk into range more and leaders swap aggro to whatever's closest. And he's just not very good at all. Sorry, buddy. Next is Ultima, who I'm actually going to put in the B tier, probably here. Ultima got buffed, and that's really huge for this character because the only thing that this character has going for it is really long range and high damage. So the fact you got a damage buff is really nice. That's pretty much it. The ability's useless, and you're really just using him for more DPS in the midfield because it is really high range. It's going to be something that scales really well with levels. This is not something that's going to be like a low level use, but yeah, it's not bad. Definitely not for a B tier. Next is Kiryu, who we are going to be putting in bottom of A tier. So Kiryu's great, right? 90% absolute zero cannon on the leader in overtime, OP, right? But Psychic Chorus exists, and Psychic Chorus counters that whole strategy, and Psychic Chorus is very popular, so it's kind of hard to make it work efficiently unless you're playing someone that doesn't have that. Kiryu also has AoE on his attacks, which does salvage him a bit if they do have Psychic Chorus. And overall, he's a pretty good leader. Gimmicky ability that doesn't always work. It does have a counter effect, but yeah, I think we all know what it's like to get absolute zero canned on. I think we all know what it's like to at least do it once. So Kiryu leader, A tier, easy. Next is Mecha King Ghidorah. Oh man, I want to put in, I guess I'll put in the bottom of B. So you can just use the ability passively and you could still get a decent energy gain, but it's not like how it used to be where you can double proc it and do a ton of damage, stun lock things, stall time, and have your energy ramp up. Mecha King Ghidorah used to be like a top 5 leader when it first came out. Unfortunately, it is borderline BC tier, but it does have AoE and it does have an energy gain ability, so it's not like putting you in the negative ever like Shin Godzilla or G21. But yeah, I really wish this thing would get fixed to how it used to be because it was my favorite leader to use. It's really sad, but yeah, no more Mecha King Ghidorah, unfortunately. Next is Hedorah, who I think is really trash. Hedorah might be a D tier because Mecha Godzilla already has the niche of being a useless ability 3-star stat stick, and Hedorah is the same thing, but you think it'd be better because Hedorah has AoE, which is obviously a plus. The only thing is, Hedorah is the only 3-star AoE character, and because of that, the attack is like 25% less or like 20% less than like Mecha Godzilla or GD9 or Gigan, which is insane. That completely hinders Hedorah from ever being meta. That unit could have been meta if its attack was similar to the other 3-star leaders, but because it's so much lower, the DPS is just not there even with the AoE, so, and the ability's useless. Like, we didn't even talk about that. Horrible, useless, trash ability from the get-go, never had a chance of being good. It is dog shit. I want to punch the wall, that's how bad it is. Next is Jet Jaguar Singular Points. We're going to be putting in, I'm going to go bottom B. So JJSP is literally an auto attack god. He is literally there to be paired with Basher pretty much. It's the same thing with Mothra, where Mothra is really, really good at doing damage as a leader, so it's paired really well with Batra to buff her. Jet Jaguar Singular Point is pretty much the same way. It has, I think, the same AoE spread. It doesn't go as far, but it's way quicker, like a lot of damage. You'll be surprised. And the speed boost, like we mentioned with Batra, isn't very good, but it's with long range units with him, which there's a lot of, and there's not like a ton of good combos. I know Space Godzilla is a good one. The movement speed's only 50%, so it's not raising it a ton, so units like Earth are still going to be extremely slow. But Jet Jaguar Singular Point is pretty much like a bottom of B tier auto attack god. That's really his role, and he does that nicely. Next is Kong, and I'm telling you, everyone is sleeping on Kong. So Kong, I'm gonna put right, actually, I'm gonna put right there. I think Kong's really, oh gosh, no, we don't do that. I think Kong is really good, man. 1 cost ability is what saves this dude, but it just works super well. 4 cost, 20% damage buff. There's nothing that buffs 4 cost in this game, and there's a lot of good 4 cost characters. There's King Caesar, there's Hedorah, there's Mothra, there's Jet Jaguar Singular Point. There's just a lot of different 4-star damage options that G89 cannot buff, which carves a niche for Kong. It's also 1 cost, which makes it super easy to use whenever you want. And if you use a team with a lot of 4 stars and 5 stars, a really cheap team with a really cheap ability, it's a lot of pressure you can generate, and you could do it a lot quicker than with the G89 team because it's generally costing more to pull off G89's combo. I've used Kong Leader a lot, and I really like him. He's very underrated. He doesn't have AoE, that's probably the weakest part of his kit, but he has a solid ability with a solid cost, and yeah, man, that's pretty much it. Good dude. And last but not least in our tier list is Mechagodzilla 2021, who has not been added yet, so we are going to be putting him over this Kiryu, and hopefully we remember to do it this time. I actually forgot to put him in the tier list, so good thing I went back and rewatched it. So we're going to be adding this in at some point towards the end. But as far as Mechagodzilla 2021 goes as a leader, we're going to be putting him, I want to say, right here. Yeah, so I'm going to put him behind Descadora. Now, the reason I want to put him here is the ability is overpriced at 4. It is not meta, and it won't be because of the 4 price, but at the end of the day, it still might be. There still might be plays you can make with it by letting flyers latch onto your leader, using the ability and having like G89 stall and swipe them all down. I still need to experiment with it, but at the end of the day, he doesn't really have too big of an AoE swipe, if at all. I honestly don't even know if it is AoE. I'm under the assumption it is due to the attack properties of it as a unit. But he only has the swipe. I really wish Mechagodzilla 2021 would swap attacks with his leader HP. Like if he was at full, he would do the tail attack. If he's below 2/3, he would do the punch. And then if he's below 1/3, he would do the missile barrage. I feel like that would be really cool. Unfortunately, he doesn't do that. I would like to see the ability drop to, I mean, at least 3, hopefully 2. It doesn't last very long, and it only affects what's on the field, and it does have a decent cooldown timer. It could have been done so much better, but at the end of the day, it's still a pretty decent leader ability, especially when comparing to things like G21 or Shin Godzilla or any of the other leaders below him. So I'm going to say towards the top of B, hopefully he gets a leader buff in the near future, but still not that bad. So a decent addition to the game, despite the flaws with it. But yeah, that is going to conclude the tier list, so it's going to jump back into my original outro. I'll see you there. Actually, though, I'm going to put Biollante in front. Still pretty good, but I think Biolante's AoE maybe makes him a bit better. And that is going to conclude our leader tier list. Let me know what you guys think down below. Pretty balanced. We don't even have to really change anything. I like how it kind of stacks up. It's pretty even across the board. Let me know what you guys think. Might be a hot topic to think Gigan 72 is the second best. It might be Mothra now that I think about it. Yeah, I think we'll leave Mothra in front there. I think that works out pretty nicely. But let me know if I'm sleeping on a leader. Let me know if there's maybe a leader you think out there is pretty good, like G21 maybe. Or maybe he is the worst leader in the game, and I'm absolutely correct. I think so. But thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Have a good rest of your day, and peace out.